there was one commercial that actually really stood out to me. Now, I'm not saying it was the best commercial of the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that at all, but it definitely is one that stood out, and that was Google's Pixel 6 commercial with Lizzo, where they were really showcasing real tone. I know we talked about real tone, several episodes back, and that's Google's AI technology that they've built into the Pixel 6 to actually make folks who have darker skin tone look better
Mm-hmm.
in various lighting situations. And Google, I don't think they do a Super Bowl commercial every year. I think they started back in 2010 is I think that's when they had their first one, and they've had several since. I remember there was one a few years ago. It was Loretta, and it just really kind of stood out because it was a an older gentleman. It looks like his wife maybe had passed away, so he was telling his Google assistants to, show me pictures of me and Loretta. He's basically using it to bring up memories of him and his deceased wife, and that just kind of, got me in the feels. But this one, stood out because it's like, wow, you know, Google has not ever been confused with Apple when it comes to the way they market stuff.
Right.
In fact, they actually don't market stuff to their detriment, in my opinion. So the things that they decide to put in a Super Bowl ad is usually stuff that is fairly important to the company. Things that you probably are going to see for some time to see, or for some time to come. So I was all about the real tone, and I really liked what Google did with that Pixel 6. And my hope was, well, this is not going to be the last that we hear of it. They announce it, it's a thing in the phone, and then they never talk about it again. They actually used their Super Bowl capital to, no, we're going to double down on this,
Was
and
that just because
got
it was
Lizzo
Black
to do her
History Month?
song.
And
Um,
not only
Maybe.
Black History Month,
That seemed like a
word on the
very savvy Black History Month move, Google.
but also word on the street, the Pixel was having software issues to
Ooh.
where a lot of customers were having issues with updates that was coming out directly from Google. So maybe if you add up, they were trying to
They need a little
cover up
positive
some,
PR.
yeah, and it was Black History Month, so you add a perfect storm, not to take nothing away what you just said, Rob, but also
Right.
two and three.
I have one little nitpick with that commercial. I thought the commercial was very well done. I love Lizzo. Shout out to Lizzo. If you ever want to come on the Tech John, holla at your girl. Um, and the photographs were stunning, so I can definitely appreciate if in fact this is what the technology can do, the real tone technology can do, then it's definitely, am I going to get a Pixel instead of my iPhone? I don't know. But I appreciate the fact that they're at least thinking about how to make darker skin tones look better in photos. The only thing I would have liked to see them do is an apples to apples comparison, because when they started at the beginning of the commercial talking about how we looked in old photographs, I mean, they were using photographs from like Polaroid camera from 1978. Like the pictures were mad old, and it's like, yeah, I mean, the technology was different back then. We didn't necessarily have the technology back then to have better. That's not an
Mhm.
excuse. Somebody probably should have been working on it, but I felt like it wasn't an apples to apples comparison versus what you could get in another phone today. That would have made a bigger difference to me. Like, if you expect me to give up this 13 right here, this 13 Pro, you got to justify it for me. And using those particular photographs as the comparison didn't do it for me. And then knowing that
Yeah.
they use professional photographers and they probably had the best lighting, like you you
Oh.
you put your photographs in the best possible position to look good as they could, but then you compared them to pictures you had to pick up at CVS, in a paper envelope, you know what I mean, in
Yeah,
quality, and it's just like they're supposed to be better than those pictures.
that is
Right.
actually a good
Well,
point. They did not have
but
to
I will.
use. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but I will say, I mean, Google setting up the perfect picture is no different than what Apple does. Apple probably does it too. All these other companies do it
Right.
again too. And I think not to counter, but I took it as Google telling the history of Black people as it relates to photography, not necessarily, okay, look at these old pictures and then look at what we can do. I kind of took it as, okay, the history of Black folks. They nobody's really went that extra mile to make sure we're represented. Well, the
Right.
Google with the Pixel 6, yada yada, that's our challenge, that's our charge. This is what we're gonna do. Bam, here's what it looks like. So yeah, that's why I try to take
Fair
it.
enough.
But at the same time, they probably would have won a lot more people over if they would have said, look at Samsung Galaxy, look
This is
at
what I'm saying.
iPhone
You're trying to get
13, look at
converts.
Google Pixel. Yeah.
You don't have to go back far. You could have literally went and got you like a 2019 high-end phone where we would
Right.
have been looking like Ashy Larry if the
From
light
old
wasn't
LG
exactly right.
Joan or something. Like you
So,
really could have found it. Like just just give me a little bit better perspective to make a purchasing decision. I can appreciate
here's
what you said, Terrance, but that ain't gonna make me buy the new phone.